Hello and welcome to our first session in the Improving Life for Londoners series, where today we're talking all about planning your project. My name is Sammy Morger. I'm broadcasting live this afternoon from Crowdfunder HQ in what was sunny Newquay, but it's actually now a little bit overcast. So we're going to get started straight away. So a little bit of an introduction, first of all, to Crowdfunder. So we're the UK's largest rewards-based platform. As I say, we're based down in Cornwall, and we actually see around about sort of 180 to 200 new projects coming onto the site and registering every day. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about the scale at which crowdfunding is now across the UK. So what I want to do first up is just to clarify exactly what we mean when we're talking about rewards crowdfunding. Some of you may be pretty clear on this, others perhaps aren't so sure. So let's make sure that we're all on exactly the same page to start. So here I'm going to introduce you to Phil. Phil had an idea. He wanted to open a bakery in Leeds. He went to the bank and they weren't able to lend. He was short just under sort of £8,000 was what he needed in order to finish kitting out his bakery with the oven that he needed to start making bread. So instead he decided to crowdfund. And what he did was went onto the Crowdfunder website, set up his own unique page, and he offered rewards in return for those people who contributed money towards making his idea happen. So for example, if someone contributed £50, they would get one loaf of bread every week for 6 months. Fantastic. So it worked really well in that he was offering things that he could deliver after he'd made his idea happen. It was also a great way to connect with his community, find out if people are interested in supporting him. And of course, at the end of that 49 days, he had £8,690 in the bank. And that was from 144 local people. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. And of course, we do fund businesses, social enterprises, and food projects. But we fund all sorts of different projects across the scale, from charities to heritage organisations, smaller community groups, or really large films and political parties. So there's a really huge range of things that you can find on Crowdfunder. So why do people crowdfund? And actually, this is a question that we get asked quite a lot. And it's, the obvious bit is the funding, that's in the name, we know about that. But for a lot of projects, actually, some of these other things are very key to that decision. And I'm hoping that when you're looking at this, some of this might ring true for yourselves as well. So thinking back to Phil and his bakery, validation was really key for him. What he was able to do was to, in a very low-risk way, actually test his idea and find out if those people in his local community were interested in coming and buying bread from a local bread co-op. And it also meant that when he needed to go back to the bank in the future, he had the validation from his crowd. He had the money in the bank to be able to say, yeah, I'm making a success of this. Now are you able to lend? That kind of thing. Secondly, of course, is awareness. Now, anyone who runs a crowdfunding project will tell you that huge growth in awareness is very much something that comes out of it. You just can't crowdfund without telling everyone and anyone that you've ever met about it. So it's definitely a massive plus. Mainly if you're a startup, you're doing something new, but actually also it can be a real benefit to those people who have been working away for a while. Perhaps their business has been running for a while, or their organisation. And actually it's a really great way to sort of reinvigorate who they are and what they're doing, and try and capture a new audience outside of kind of the usual and the day-to-day. And what we also find that crowdfunding does is it very much breeds advocates for your project. Those people who support you at this very early stage in making this idea happen tend to be on board for the long haul. They tend to be those people who will keep coming back, will keep supporting you, and will be involved in your project much further into the future. And of course, the thing that is very specific to Crowdfunder is this access to extra funding. We have a range of partners that have different grants available for projects who are crowdfunding on Crowdfunder. It's really easy to apply for them. You do it directly through your Crowdfunder project, and you actually get a pledge just like any other pledge from anyone in the crowd straight onto your project. So a couple of those funds that I'm going to draw your attention to, which I think are really relevant. Trust for London and City Bridge Trust have £100,000 for community projects that benefit Londoners, and you can get up to £10,000 per project, which is a really huge amount of money. So do have a look at that fund. Another one, which is super duper relevant, particularly if you're in North London or Hertfordshire, Origin Housing are actually offering up to £1,000 per project for those community projects too. And there are lots of others, particularly if you're in Barking Dagenham, Lewisham, other places like that, or Lambeth, that I know that there are different grants and funds available for you. So if you head to the Crowdfunder website and /funds on the end of that, you'll be able to see all the different funds that are available at the moment. So over these next 3 sessions, we're actually going to be going through the 3 main phases that you go through when you're putting together a crowdfunding project. That's how we're going to break it down. On average, the industry average of success rate for crowdfunding projects is actually around about 23%, which sounds very low, but of course that includes the good, the bad and the ugly in the crowdfunding world. People who perhaps aren't very serious about it, are doing something just to have a go and see what works out, and others who of course really know what they're doing and work very hard on their projects. Now, in comparison to that average 23% success rate, on Crowdfunder, the average success rate is actually around about 42%. And that's mainly down to all of the extra advice and guidance that we offer. So if you would like to give your project the best chance possible of being a success, you absolutely need to come along to all 3 sessions, and you need to read those guides. For those people who do come along to those sessions, the chances of them hitting their target massively increases, okay? So today specifically, we're looking at that first stage on planning your project. And again, we can break that down itself into those 3 elements: making a plan, figuring out the skills that you're going to need and making sure that you have all of those skills within your team, and identifying who your crowd is going to be. So hopefully some of you will recognize this page. This is from the first guide on planning your project. If you haven't already downloaded it, there's a link beneath this video on YouTube. You can jump on there and download it. So this is on page 4. We have this checklist, which is a fantastic starting point for you when you're starting to think about crowdfunding. Of course, it's only a starting point. There may be other things that you'll want to add in. You might want to create an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe you want to just use a to-do list. Maybe use a calendar. It's up to you, however you like to plan, whatever you like to do. But do make sure that you start to think about all these different tasks. The next element, which is really key to the planning phase, which we go into in some detail in the pack, is identifying the skills that you're going to need to run your project. Now, as the person who has come along to this webinar, you are probably the project leader. You probably fill that top left box, but perhaps you actually fill some of the other roles as well. There's a good chance that you do, in fact. So have a look through kind of the people that you know, and think about who actually might be able to help fill any gaps that you perhaps can't fill yourself. So if you know, for example, that you're a fantastic content writer, you're very creative, you know how to make a page look good and tell your story, but perhaps you have no real experience in marketing or social media or emails, try and figure out who you can recruit on board to help you out with those things. Generally speaking, the team behind a crowdfunding project will be around about 2 to 5 people within it. And of course, the more people you have in your team, immediately you're going to have a bigger crowd at your fingertips, which we're going to come on to in just a moment. So this diagram is taken from page 6 of the pack. Hopefully, again, some of you will recognize it. This is what we call a network map. This is absolutely the most useful task that you will do when you're putting together your crowdfunding project. It's essentially going through everyone that you know, everyone that you have a connection to, that you can speak to, and actually all the people that you'd like to speak to, and all the people that you know, who they know. And you can start to imagine quite quickly, this becomes quite a large map. So I'm going to show you an example of one that I've done. So I printed off the page here, and I set about starting to write on some of my own contacts. So I put in some partners, people that I know who have groups on Facebook or really strong Instagram followings. Again, links to press perhaps that I might have, people within the industry. And I've started to highlight in there who I think are my key influencers as well. That's a term that you'll recognise if you're familiar with the pack. They're those people who are the opinion leaders, and people will tend to follow them if they come on board. I've also started to highlight who I think might be my super backers. And super backers are those people who you think might contribute a larger amount of money to your campaign. So that might be a high net worth, it might be a corporate, it might be a local organisation, like Rotary or the WI, for example. But do start going through and mapping these out. Now, the other thing you can see is that you're going to need a bigger piece of paper than the one that I've got. So do make a start on the biggest piece of paper that you have. Get all of your team involved, and make sure that you keep adding to that as you go through this. So once you've got your network map together, something that's incredibly useful to start thinking about is, why are people going to pledge on your project? It's a great question. Generally speaking, we can break down a crowd or your audience into two main groups, and there will be overlap in the middle. That's what we call the sweet spot, when people fall into both groups. First one is that they believe in your idea. That's the bit in blue. So those people who think that your idea is worthwhile, it's going to do some good in the world. It's something which is worth them spending their money on. The other side, the yellow circle, is people who will gain something from supporting the project. There's some sort of personal benefit. Usually that's the reward, but it might be that actually if your project comes off, it benefits them personally in some other way. Now, as an example, a project I supported recently, where I was in the blue side, is a project that is actually still live at the moment, which is reintroducing beavers to Cornwall. I thought it was a really great idea, really love what they were doing, and I just donated. I just contributed towards making it happen, didn't get anything in return. On the other side, another project I've supported recently is Samphire Festival 2017. You can find that one as well if you have a search on Crowdfunder. And what I actually got in return for my contribution is tickets to the festival. So it was really simple for me. I wanted to go to the festival. I could get tickets at a discounted price by supporting the crowdfund, so I did it. So start to think about where those people on your network map, where they fall, whereabouts on that diagram. So hopefully this has given you a really good introduction to finding your crowd. Now, of course, when we start to identify who they are, in the lead up to going live, we want to go through a phase of what we call nurturing. And you can do this from day one. This is basically getting friendly, reintroducing yourselves to your audience. So making people feel valued, starting conversations, and of course building your audience as well. So particularly if you're thinking that your social media is looking a little bit tired or neglected, or perhaps you haven't even thought about sending emails in a while, or maybe your website needs a refresh. Start doing these things early so that you can concentrate very much more focused on actually creating your project page and thinking about your communication strategy later on. So from today, start thinking about nurturing your crowd. How do you keep those people close? So next step is to start crowdfunding. What we mean by that is going onto the Crowdfunder website and press this button. It looks exactly like this actually on the page. What that's going to do is just get you into the system. That's going to mean that you can start working on your page from the back. It doesn't mean that anyone will be able to see your project. It won't be live or anything like that, but it means that you start to actually get a real feel for what it is that you need to do. Do, of course, download the next pack, which you can find back in the Eventbrite that hopefully you signed up to today. And do make sure that you come along to that next session. Any questions on anything that we've spoken about today or otherwise, you can reach me directly on Twitter. I'm @SammyMorja, or you can pop us an email, and that's support@crowdfunder.co.uk. So in our next session, we're going to be going through the do's and don'ts when telling your story. We're going to be looking at how to work out what is the best target for your project, and also how you decide between flexible funding and all or nothing. So I'll see you at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the 7th of June. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much. Bye.